Hey, I just want to take a few minutes of your time today. I want to look at something that I think is going to be very helpful when there's a conflict within the church, how the church is structured and how it works. And at the end, I want to give you some updated thoughts on conflict resolution that might be useful to you in any conflicts that are happening in your home or in your local church or in your conference or whatever. So let's go straight to Matthew 28 and let's start there. And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age." And so we have been given a duty, a task. I know every now and then that we hear people that are unhappy with something in their church. They feel like they need to withhold tithe or something. And I want to suggest to you today, let's hold on, take a deep breath, and let's see how the church works. And I think we might find some approach that's better than that. So we're going to draw a little chart. But first I want to read something to you. And this is from the 2022 edition of the Church Manual. You know, the Church Manual, a lot of people just throw it away. But, you know, this is really kind of like, it's got a lot of limitations of power from people in church authority. It gives a lot of obligations the church has toward its membership. And so this is kind of a little bit, not completely, a little bit like the Bill of Rights for church members. It's kind of outlining obligations the church has to you. Anyway, let me give you in one sentence today, just one sentence. This is page 28 of this church manual. The Seventh-day Adventist form of governance is representative, which recognizes that authority rests in the membership and is expressed through duly elected representatives at each level of organization, with executive responsibility delegated to representative bodies and officers for the governing of the church at each separate level. That one sentence says a lot, and it says a lot of things that match with the Bible. The authority rests in the membership. In fact, let's draw a little picture here together and help us understand that. When you're baptized and you become a Christian, we vote you into membership, right? Subject to your baptism. I believe God has appointed a certain organizational pattern. It's a missionary structure. It's here to facilitate mission. And that's God's purpose, is for us to be part of that structure. So when you are voted into membership, you don't just go in randomly. You become part of a congregation. And everybody's part of these different congregations. And within a certain area, those congregations, they combine together in a sisterhood of churches. And those are the membership. Remember, we read the authority rests in the membership. So we have the constituency, the level, the membership, every member. So if you're a conference of 20,000, 40,000, 80,000 church members, you're a constituency of 20,000, 40,000, 80,000. And so the authority that the church has, that all the conference officers and everybody has, is vested. It rests in, that's the starting place. God has put that authority into the local congregations, and each local congregation makes all kinds of decisions that the conference has no say about. The general conference president has no particular say about. It's things that happen in your local church. So the local church is kind of at the root, and you're a member, you're part of that. You have rights. The church has obligations toward you, and so you are part of the constituency. Now, every now and then, there's a meeting, and there's different kinds of constituency meetings, but generally speaking, every 4 or 5 years, we elect delegates and from out of our local church, and they all gather together, and they have what's called a constituency meeting. By the way, the early a century and a half ago, when there were constituency meetings, they had them once a year. Like when there was a general conference session, they had it once a year. When there was a conference session, they had it once a year. And then after a while, they started having them every 2 years. Now they're usually 4 or 5 years apart. That's a place I'd like to see some reform. Conference constituency meetings, regular ones should happen to elect officers and so on, should be 1 or 2 year terms. But anyway, that's not our point here today. So at the top of the stack here, we're going to have all the churches, the membership, the authority rests in the membership, and out of there, you'll elect delegates at different times, and they'll come and have a constituency meeting. So those delegates get together, they represent your church, and they get together, and they're going to elect officers. So then they're going to elect basically for 3 things, right? They're going to elect the conference corporation, and that's going to be the part of the conference that those officers, four or five guys, they will basically deal with the property. So you've heard about that thing about, maybe the conference could lock you out of your church. Well, that's true, and yeah, but look at it this way. So the conference corporation owns the buildings legally, but the constituency governs the conference corporation. See, so that's you, the membership. You elect the conference corporation officers, and they govern that aspect of the conference. So then there's another group that's elected, and that's the conference administration. Those are people like the president and the secretary and so on. Those people manage the pastoral staff, the teachers, and so on. They deal with all of those kind of things. So they work for the constituency. Some people say, well, the church, it has to be what these leaders say. Well, actually, the leaders are working for the church, okay? So we're going down level by level here, and we have at the top here, we have the constituency. That's where the authority rests. And then what they do is delegation. Authority is delegated. In fact, when we read it here in Matthew 28, Jesus was talking about authority. All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. And then, therefore, go and do this, do that. So Jesus has delegated authority to his church, and that's the constituency. The constituency delegates authority another level, and not above them, but below them. They're doing what their will is. So the conference officers, the conference corporation, they are elected and they serve as the servants of the constituency. Now then there's another group of people, and that's the conference executive committee. And they sort of overlap with some of these groups. We're not going to put everything into full detail here, but the final decisions are made. There's a checks and balances. The conference president can't just do whatever he wants, or the conference treasurer can't just do whatever he wants. The conference executive committee sort of has the last word in between constituency sessions. So we want to understand this more correctly. They work for the constituency, and you and I, we are the constituency. It's not that the conference administration, we must bow to them and do every which thing they say. There's checks and balances. There's things they can do, and there's things they can't do. We should listen to them. We should counsel with them. There's a lot here in this book saying we counsel, but it doesn't say we must comply with them in every which place. We can counsel with them, and so they can tell us their opinions, and we should respect it, and we should take it seriously. Hopefully they want, surely they want the work to be very successful. But again, at the end of the day, the main power in the church rests with the membership. It rests in the constituency. It's in your local church. So if you're going to take your tithe and say, well, I'm mad about this, I'm mad about that, then so I'm going to withhold, I'm not going to return my tithe here to this missionary structure, you're doing your own self a harm. So I'm suggesting that that's not really a meaningful, suitable approach. What you want to do is support this missionary structure. And from time to time, we're going to come to situations where we don't see eye to eye, where we don't always agree. You may not agree with some decision that's made at the conference executive committee. That's fine. We can be friends. We don't have to let the air out of each other's tires or anything. We may disagree very vehemently, but we can disagree and still pray for each other. And sometimes we're just going to have to reshuffle the deck. And that's what happens on a normal basis at every constituency, a regular constituency meeting every 4 or 5 years. So that's just kind of the way it is all set up. The conference, we don't have to do what some person says. We want to listen to them. They probably have good counsel most of the time. So let's listen to them and let's give them all, lots of respect. But again, each local church gets to make its own decisions. There's certain things that can only happen on a local church level. Let me tell you, it's absolutely plain. The World Church has laid it out plainly here. No conference leadership team can go above and beyond the church manual. The church manual, limits you. For example, church discipline. Church discipline can only happen at the local church level. It can't be forced from the conference. It can't be forced from the division level or somewhere like that. It all is built into the local church. If the local church does not censure somebody for some kind of infraction, they're not censured. That's just the facts. If you don't like somebody's haircut, oh well. And so it's the local church has the power. This is the way it's been set up, and we should remember this. God's plan for us is not to just be a bunch of robots or run the church on some AI program. As soon as you become a member, you check your brain at the door. No, I don't think so. But what we want to do is pay close attention, listen to the counsel Sometimes we'll agree. Sometimes we'll say, no, I guess that really just doesn't seem right. So use your experience with Jesus, use your brain, and listen. Many times you'll have excellent counsel from the leaders. So watch for that. But we're not here just, we don't check our brain at the door. We have our own, this Holy Spirit is leading me too, okay? So we have the conference officers. They're elected, and it's not that the conference serves them, it's that they serve the conference. Who is that? They serve the constituency. They serve the membership. Their authority is delegated. The only authority the conference president has is authority that's been delegated to him by the members, because the authority rests in the membership. All right, so here's a little pop quiz. This is maybe the most important point. Remember, where does the authority rest? What does the World Seventh-day Adventist Church say about where authority rests in the church? Does it rest in the conference office? Well, some authority is there, but it doesn't rest there. It is delegated. It is granted to them, but it's from the constituents. Here's another quick question. Can a missionary structure go wrong? Can it become so broken that it can't be fixed? And I think that some missionary structures can become so broken that they can't be fixed. I'll give you an immediate example. The United Methodist Church, which actually, by the way, is structured rather similarly to our church. They came to a situation here just in the last couple of years that was so unworkable that there was a big split, and they could not work it out. And so today the United Methodist Church is broken. That's a missionary structure which cannot achieve the mission which it's set out for. So it can happen. We certainly don't want it to happen. How can it be prevented from happening? It can be prevented from happening when we are very careful as church members that when you become a member of the church, you don't check your brain at the door. You don't just delegate your thinking to other people. You don't delegate your praying to other people. You need to be an active participant in your local church. Return your offerings in giving, continue your giving. The problem is when we become lazy about our responsibility as constituency members, because the authority rests in the membership. So we want to be diligent in exercising that authority in a godly manner. And so I'm encouraging you to just take a deep breath. If there's issues in the conference where you are, here or there, that's fine. You know what? Address it as part of the constituency. That's how you address it. Don't cut off your own nose. You are part of the missionary structure. So remember, it's all organized here, but on the top layer, that's where the authority rests. We read it right out of the church manual. It's just as plain as could be. The authority rests in the membership, unless the membership gets lazy and just says, okay, you guys do our thinking for us. So that would be a problem. So I want to encourage you to support your local conference wherever you are, not supporting it blindly, but support it in terms of taking an active view of the mission. How are things going? Are the right decisions being made? Are we trying to be evangelistic? Is a pastoral mode of operation happening, or are there other kinds of things? So you and we as members need to make that happen. Let us be faithful in praying for our leaders. And at different times, we'll just have to agree to disagree, and maybe we'll have to shift. Different things will happen, to be some changes, reshuffling of everything. That's okay. That's the way the system is set up. So we can be friendly to people and appreciate the many hours and sleepless nights they may have as they're trying to figure out the right approach. And sometimes they'll get it right, sometimes they'll get it wrong. And so we can love them and still be part of the mission of Christ. So anyway, some history for you there, some interesting business. So having said that, is there any way back from the brink when it looks like the line has been crossed? So I have 7 quick points here for personal reflection. See what you think. Is there psychological debris from other events that could be clouding one group's perception of other persons or groups? That could be. Here's another question I would ask parties that are in a dispute. Can previously made assertions or statements be revised? Could they be made more accurately? Not necessarily admitting error, but more precisely to state the facts. Could there be, in measure, kind of a reset of the baseline points of dispute? Here's another question. Have parties on either side of the dispute perhaps dehumanized the people on the other side of the line, not having originally set out to, but just inadvertently doing that? Is that something that's possible? Here's a 4th question, just a reconsideration. Have the parties involved been correctly represented? Has somebody misrepresented somebody here? And you might say, well, no, of course not. But if you stop and relook at it again, is it possible that somebody's views have been misrepresented? Here's another question. Have the various procedures in the dispute been followed carefully? Is it sufficiently fair what's been done, or have there been some really substantially unfair pieces in the whole thing? Something to think about. Now, dealing with conflict is a tough deal, and most people aren't in that leadership slot. But here's a question that could be asked nevertheless. Is there room for a less authoritarian style to address this problem? And finally, are there key decisions that have been taken that could actually be rescinded? Something to think about. 6 or 7 things. Now, I believe, unfortunately, that some conflicts cannot be resolved until there's a change in the combination of persons that are involved in the conflict. The emotional energy that's been invested already creates inertia to continue the conflict. And it's kind of a continuation of what's called the gambler's fallacy. The gambler has been popping money into the slot machines, and he's put so much money in, he's just determined to keep going until he gets a win. And because people have invested so much emotional energy in a conflict, they want to just keep going until they win because they've already spent so much. But can I ask this? If those who are involved can consider the broader mission of the church and the potential for good in a different outcome, is it within the possibility of the Holy Spirit to bring these two parties back from the brink, back from the potential for total brokenness? And, the answer is yes. Yes, if people are willing. Does God have gifts waiting for his church, maybe even in a moment that seems like it's an enormous crisis? Personally, I'm convinced that these heavenly gifts are within reach of those who are converted persons. Anyway, that's what I believe. Only you know what you believe. Hey, there's a series of 7 or 8 of these videos on church authority. I'll put a link to it over here if you're interested. I think you'll learn a lot. We talk about a lot of specific things about the church manual, making motions and so on like that. And I think you'll find it very insightful. So I invite you to look at those.